Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So we are back over on the BTR server, and one of the big changes we've got coming with Season 14 is the Doctrine system. It's actually changing quite massively, and it's introducing loads of new doctrines, plus this new way of Doctrine Alchemy. And since so much is changing, I thought it'd be worth taking the time to kind of run through the system, to dispel a few myths, kind of explain how it all works so you know what you've got coming when it actually releases into the game on the 24th. So what is Doctrine Alchemy and what's changed? Well, there's a couple of things I want to say before we fully dive into it. One, the existing War Scholar traditional treaty-based doctrine system is remaining in exactly the same way. You can still unlock the same, double shot, arrow rain, all the usual stuff is still there. We've got some treaties here on the PTR, so you can just do a normal, and it's working in the same tier system. We still have grey at tier 1, green, rare blue doctrines, and epic purple doctrines. All that is staying exactly the same, and it's all the same type of doctrines that we've been having before. On top of that, with the Doctrine Alchemy system, there is loads of new doctrines coming. One thing I've seen sort of come up every now and then is people have seen that on the PTR server, on this testing server, people have been seeing some of these leadership doctrines. These are just being carried over from the booming test version. We are not having any leadership doctrines come to the My Games version. You will have them if you're on Frontier, but on the My Games version, we are not getting them, and they are not into being introduced. It's just a relic on the PTR. Now, essentially, this list here from the Health and Defense Doctrine all the way down are all the new doctrines that are being added into the game. And these all can only be crafted through the Doctrine Alchemy. And they are all going to be epic. So if we go press X and go over to the Doctrine Alchemy now, you can kind of see the screen that we're in. So whenever you craft a doctrine using Doctrine Alchemy, so you have to put in 8 existing doctrines. So these are some of the new ones, so you could put them in, but you can also go down to the bottom. You can also use your old existing doctrines. So these are doctrines that you currently are going to have on the main server, on your main account, maybe just some crappy grey increased piercing damage, something like that. These can then be used to put into the Doctrine Alchemy, and you need 8 of them every time. So, for example, let's just highlight this. Let's put a grey and 7 greens. You can see we can then begin the process. Let's put those through. It will do its transformation, and it will give us a new doctrine. Oh, okay. It didn't. It gave us an Epic Wisdom. Now, Epic Wisdom essentially counts as a purple doctrine when you drop it back in. So it's in replacement of a doctrine. So that's kind of a little bit unlucky. Let's give that another go. See if we can hopefully not get another Wisdom. There we go. Fingers crossed. Give me something useful. Okay, there we go. So we've got a tier 4 health doctrine. Now, unless you get a Wisdom, in which case it sucks to be you, you are guaranteed with this system to get an epic doctrine. It's always going to be purple. But the purples that you get through this Doctrine Alchemy system have 5 tiers, starting at tier 1 and all the way up to tier 5. And actually, we can see that here if we look through. So, for example, we have a Pressure Doctrine 1, right? So it reduces damage when charging and reduces charge cooldown. But if we go all the way back up to the top and see if we can find the same one, can we? No, tier 4. Precision. I should have looked what the image for it actually looked like. But essentially you get the idea. There's a tier 5 version of it. And there's tier 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 for all of these all the way through. Well, the movement speed one. You get the idea anyway. And there's all the tier 4s. And we come down to all the tier 3s, tier 2s and tier 1s, right? So it's always going to be worth salvaging through the Doctrine Alchemy system any old doctrines that you're not going to be using, particularly grey stuff and grey and green and blue, because they're always going to end up with an epic doctrine. And even the tier 1 epic doctrines are actually pretty good. Increased block by 200, but it also is reducing damage by 30 points. That is better than the equivalent epic version of that. And that's just a tier 1 version. Increased piercing damage by 100 points and giving you arrow rain. Right? That is far better than the standard epic arrow rain doctrine. So all of these doctrines are going to be quite a significant upgrade. So hopefully that makes sense of why this is going to kind of change things up quite a lot. So how then do you differentiate between getting tier 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5? Well, it depends on what you put in to the Doctrine Alchemy to salvage in the first place. So let's go back down to our list and let's stick in another 8 green doctrines. So these are obviously fairly low tier doctrines. And you'll see because they're low tier, the percentage chance is much more towards getting a tier 1. 43% chance this is going to be a tier 1 doctrine because we're using low quality doctrines. There's only a 4% chance it's going to be tier 5. But if we now get rid of all these, yoink, 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 and say stick in 8 purple epic tier doctrines, you see the chances move around. Now, the chance of it tier 1 has gone down to 23%, but tier 3 has gone up to 32%, and tier 5 is now up to 13% from just a couple of percent previously. So it's based on what you put in. Now, it is only based on the colour of the doctrine, i.e. the rarity, in this case being epic because they're purple. It makes no difference in terms of the outcome, be it a slashing defense doctrine or piercing armor penetration increase or 8 double shot doctrines. I mean, who has 8 double shot doctrines? But if you did, it makes no impact in terms of the type of doctrine you're going to be getting. The only thing that impacts is the rarity of the doctrine, and that is impacting the tier that you're going to be getting. The rest of it is all RNG. Now, the only other thing you can do to increase your chances of getting a tier 5 in this selection is to use a pure wisdom. These are things you're going to be getting from the battle pass, probably from some seasonal events and that sort of thing. And if you tick to use that, it's basically just a flat boost. You see, it puts it up on a tier 5 to a 21% chance. You can see how that increases the likelihood of getting a better craft, pushes you up to the upper end. But there's obviously always, if you've got large numbers of low tier doctrines, it's still worth smashing through them because 1, you're still guaranteed at least a tier 1 version of the new epic doctrine, and 2, there's still that couple of percent chance if you do it 20, 30, 40 times, good chance you can at least get 1 tier 5 equivalent doctrine out of it in there. Now, 2 other things to talk about. This bar here, tempering. So tempering basically occurs every time you do one of these Doctrine Alchemies. You can see it's increasing, 5, 10% along the bar by doing it with purple. If we get rid of these again quickly and run back to our greens, you'll see that the bar increases significantly less. That's because we're using lower tier doctrines. So by using higher tier doctrines, you're pushing this tempering bar up quite a lot quicker than you otherwise would be. Now, what happens when this bar gets full? If we put these back in and then whack on using a pure wisdom, you'll see it gets full. Once that hits max tier, you are guaranteed a tier 5 doctrine. So if we do that now, wait for that to run through. It comes through and there we go. We've got a poison doctrine tier 5 for rattan units. Oh, increase all armor penetration by 140 points and increase poison damage. Oh, if you could use that on rattan crossbows, I'm definitely interested. That's actually genuinely quite a nice doctrine. See what I mean about how it's going to change up the gameplay quite a bit. And you'll see that our tempering bar has basically gone back down to 0. It's carried over the excess, but back down to 0. So that is another good point, that if you just have a really crap time and you're getting really bad drops, when that tempering bar comes up, you're guaranteed a tier 5 top tier best in set doctrine. And that is kind of a handy thing to know. The final thing I want to touch on is wisdoms. So we saw a little bit earlier on how we managed to craft an epic wisdom. That is one of the drop results for doing some of the crafting. Essentially, these just stand in place of doctrines. You're going to be able to get these field battles, siege battles, probably going to be in some events as well. And acts in just exactly the same way as if you put in 8 epic doctrines and are just a direct replacement for that. So it doesn't really change anything else in that way. And you get purple for epic, blue for rare, and of course you also get green for uncommon doctrines as well. So they're just a direct 1-for-1 replacement. So what do I think of the doctrine system, the changes that we're making here? Things I kind of like in the sense that it's good that it's being mixed up a little bit. I think some of the things they said about how it's going to help newer players, I'm not entirely sure that's really the case. It does seem to be making it a player like me who's got, hundreds of old grey and green doctrines that I'm going to be able to immediately start to throw into this Doctrine Alchemy system is going to benefit me quite a lot more because I'm going to be able to start working towards getting all of my units on these tier 5 doctrines. And it is probably going to increase the disparity between sort of top tier players who can really grind this stuff out and newer players or players who don't have so much time in the game. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out, but it's going to kind of mix it up. It's also going to mix it up quite a lot in terms of just the fact there's so many new doctrines. And some of them are going to add some pretty significant things, particularly things I think like some of the armor penetration ones, things like that Rattan doctrine. That's quite significant for people like Rattan crossbows, where armor penetration is the thing that keeps them from going too crazy in the amount of damage they can do. So I think this is going to mix things up quite a lot and could kind of cause a little bit of unevenness. Probably going to take itself a little bit of time to sort of level itself out and stuff. The one final thing I want to touch on that they're adding in terms of doctrines, if we go back out and go over to our inventory, is something called Doctrine Spirits, which is something that's probably going to be coming from the Battle Pass. I don't know if they're going to have them, maybe one in the Fame Store. I don't know if they're going to have any from events. They essentially give you access to a Doctrine selection box. I don't know if this is going to be kind of the final version of this. It may or may not be. It doesn't seem all that effective. It's got some nice things like Arrow Rain. I think there's a double shot in here, which we've not had from Doctrine boxes before, but to be honest, we see from the new Doctrine Alchemy system there's an Arrow Rain, and that Arrow Rain even had a armor penetration increase as well. So how valuable these Doctrine wisdoms, or whatever they're called, Doctrine spirits, are going to really be is kind of a little bit up for debate. I guess it kind of depends what options they give you from the Doctrine selection boxes once they're introduced. Anyway, hopefully that gives you kind of a rough overview of the new Doctrine system, how it works, and yeah, how you're going to be able to craft and some of the doctrines in the game. Certainly going to add quite a lot of RNG and changes in that sense, which I'm a little bit more dubious about, but will be interesting to see how it plays out. Anyway, any questions, throw them down in the comments down below, and I'll try and get back to you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all on the next one.